I know you guys love the used price performance, and over the last couple of months, I have been picking up some of the best deals because I wanted to do a feature piece. And right here, we've got the best of the best going into a brand new case. Now, I couldn't find a really good case over the last couple of months that represented good value and had the RGB bling. So on an eBay sale, I got this V200, which has 4 fans included and has a power supply, which we will be pulling out, and it's not a bad power supply either. And then we're going to be putting in an 850 watt power supply. So we got that for 100 Aussie dollars, which is like 70 USD. So I'm extracting a lot of value out of that. We got the SoC Force motherboard here, Z87. This is one of the best overclocking boards. I picked this up in a liquidation sale. If you haven't seen that video, I'll put it up here. Where we got this for 80 Aussie dollars, which just makes it so damn cheap. Then we got the GTX 980 G1. Got this for 180 Aussie dollars. And then we got a 4770K in last month's parts hunt for 90 Australian dollars. Then we got this here, 30 Aussie dollars for this water cooler. It did include the bracket too, so I am lucky, but I don't know if some of this stuff works. So we are gonna give this graphics card some tech, yes, loving, this cooler some loving as well, and this power supply, and we're gonna delid this CPU, and then put it together before we put it in the build and see if everything turns on, see if we're good to go. But besides that, we've also got some Dominator DDR3 memory. Now I picked this up off an old school overclocker from Team AU. He sold it to me directly for 100 Aussie dollars for 4 sticks. Now, usually that's not a really good deal for DDR3 memory, but since it is Corsair Dominator, pretty much the best DDR3 memory you can get, I do consider that pretty good. So basically, we're gonna be overclocking this build today to Kingdom Come. And for drives, I've got a brand new 240 gigabyte SSD. I picked this up at 39 Aussie dollars on a sale, and a 2 terabyte, which I got pro-rated from 4 2 terabyte drives, which I picked up for 100 Aussie dollars. So that makes this 25. So the total of this build will come to 487 US dollars, or if you're in Australia, 684. So it's under the $500 price point, which is a magical number. So today's build is not only going to represent awesome price performance, but it's also going to be something that will look good and overclock like a monster with really good parts inside. With that said, let's start cleaning these parts and put this thing together. So I'm cleaning up this graphics card, and there was so much thermal paste on this GTX 980. So someone was clearly having a lot of fun with that thermal paste, but that wasn't to worry because I had a lot of fun with the brake cleaner. But also another thing we saw with this GPU was the thermal paste had become hard and crusty, and that will affect performance, which could be the reason why this particular person let this card go cheap, because they thought the performance was low, upgrade to a new card, it's nice and quiet, but that's not to worry, this thing will run even better than brand new because we're gonna put some better thermal paste on it right now. So all the parts are pretty much ready to go except for one more thing, and that is a delid on this 4770K. Now the reason being is that the thermal paste is mediocre, but it's actually a few years old now, so the thermal paste is probably dried up, and we want to get the best overclocks possible. So let's get that underway. So we had some boot problems before, but it looks like we're just gonna have to update the BIOS as it's working with this one random stick of Hynix. So sometimes your memory is not compatible with initial rounds of BIOS, especially since this motherboard was pretty much brand new in box. So after we update that, everything should be ready for a trial run. We should be ready for the install. So basically the problem with this motherboard is the outer two DIMMs won't support the Corsair Dominator memory. I've tried the two DIMMs in the second slot here and they work fine. All four DIMMs do with them switched out. So Gigabyte Bios, what are you doing? This is the latest BIOS as well. This is why there is a lot of frustration around these old school Gigabyte boards and overclocking, but we got some of this stuff here. I picked this up. I actually got 64 gigabytes of this stuff for 200 Aussie dollars. So I'm gonna do 16 gigabytes in just dual channel instead of having it in the quad channel, but that's not a problem because we're gonna drop the price down to the build. But I did really want to use this Dominator memory. So we now got the build finished, up and running, and it is looking so good. And we're just installing Windows, and today's video sponsor, SCD Keys, if you guys haven't got a Windows 10 Key Pro license already, and they've got legit single end user licenses going for as little as $13 a pop. So if you need one of these and you got a brand new build, and instead of going out and paying hundreds for a key, you can get one of these today, delivered pretty much instantly for 13 bucks using the coupon code TYCSK on checkout. Links in description below. Let's get back to this build. So I spent all last night with this thing, tuning it, pulling my hair out, having a hard time getting it to run 100%. Now, along the way, there were some problems. And first of all, the two sticks of memory that I put in, I believe one of them's actually faulty because we changed that around. Then everything started working okay. But then we came into some other problems where the 4.6 gigahertz overclock wasn't 100% stable, so we dropped that down to 4.4 just to get the testing done. And then I decided to test 388 drivers, which is what Windows will automatically install if you don't do anything and don't download the latest drivers, and compare that against the 425 drivers, which were the latest on NVIDIA's site. And here we did see improvements in performance at 1080p high settings on all three titles that I tested: Metro Exodus, Anthem, and also Apex Legends. Metro and Apex did see a sizable boost going from 70 average to 84 average, and also it felt smoother in general, but that's because it got such a big lift in FPS. Apex went from 65 to 78, but Anthem didn't increase that much at all. In fact, it only increased about 4 FPS, going from 52 to 56. So that was pretty weird to see, especially since this driver, the 388 driver, is very old. So there's not a whole lot of optimization going on in Anthem, I believe, for the GTX 9 series cards. But after ironing out all these bugs, the gaming performance was pretty good. It ended up being smooth. The whole system power draw ended up using 420 watts peak when we were doing an IDA 64 and testing the whole system. 3D Mark Firestrike showed us getting a GPU score close to 16,000 points, and then also the physics score was over 12,000 on the 4770K. However, here's where things get a little bit iffy, a little bit messy. This case that we used, the V200, although it looks nice, it's got the good bling, it's got everything you'd want for a budget case on the surface, the 3 fans at the front just completely suck. Like, I was holding a little piece of paper in front of it, and you just see there's just no airflow coming into this thing. So when we left the glass side panel on during Metro Exodus, the temperatures were literally 11 degrees higher on both the CPU and the GPU. And this kind of temperature increase is just stupid, because the ambience in here, although they're around 27 degrees, if things get hotter in summer, that's the difference between your system running too hot for longevity purposes and just running cool and actually getting better performance. Because your system can crash if it gets overloaded with heat, especially when we're using over 400 watts with this system when it's overclocked. So basically with this Thermaltake V200 case, it's okay if you've got a low powered build. Say for instance, you're using like a 1060 or a 1050 Ti and just an i5 or a Ryzen, and you're not overclocking. But if you're going to overclock your CPU and get some serious hardware in this thing, I'd definitely recommend getting a different case or changing around the fans at the front and installing a better outtake fan. In this case, we did use the Corsair water cooler, the 120mm solution. But that was a bit weird because I had to replace the fan since it had a broken fin on it. But after the case, the motherboard did present some problems, as we saw earlier with those Corsair Dominator RAM sticks. I really wanted to use these things. I thought it would have been awesome to have pretty much everything in this build high end, but that just didn't work out. So it was like the case was problematic, the RAM was problematic, we had 2 counts of problems there, the motherboard was problematic, and then the fourth thing, which is sort of unknown at this stage, I would have to do a lot more testing, is I do believe the power supply, this 850 watt power supply from Silverstone, does have high amounts of ripple, because the overclocking did feel unstable. And this is one of those things where if even one of your components in your build is lackluster, then it can bring everything else down. Because when I went to check out some detailed reviews on this power supply, it did show high amounts of ripple, but having good ratings, I guess, with the max power draw and the amps on the 12 volt line, but there's a lot more to it than just those 2 specs. And ripple is a huge factor if you guys want to get better and more long lasting stable overclocks out of your gear. So what happened here today was me getting a lot of really good parts individually and really good deals, but then throwing something together that ended up honestly being a massive headache. Sure, I've got it running now, but it's still not at the levels of overclocks that I'd like. For instance, the 4770K with a better power supply and also in a better case, I'm sure would remain stable at 4.6 gigahertz. And also that G1 Gaming, that went just above 1.5 gigahertz. But I believe you can get these up to 1.55, 1.6 gigahertz stable in the right conditions. So there it all is with this build, and what happened today was the best and also the worst experience. Got the best deals, but had the worst experience putting this thing together and getting it to run smoothly. And I think this is where those problems start to creep in for people who want to get into used price performance and used PCs, especially reflipping, is especially if you're going for enthusiast parts, you do have to be careful, because you can run into these problems. And if you don't have the spare hardware to chop and change things, then you're not going to know exactly what could be faulty, and it can take a lot of time. For instance, for me, I've been doing this for years and this still consumes a lot of time. When I got to diagnose problems, change parts, and then even then it's not guaranteed to work 100%. You can still come into ongoing problems. So that is sort of the risk you run. I believe if you want to start out with used PC hustling, definitely get into the OEM stuff, find OEM builds that work. You're going to have no problems when it comes to no overclocking. But when it comes to overclocking, you will come into problems sooner or later, just like I did here today, and it does take up a lot of your time. Anyway guys, I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, then be sure to hit that like button. Let us know in the comments section below, however, what you think of the GTX 980 and also the 4770K in 2019. They're definitely good parts for 1080p gaming in my opinion, and they're worth keeping your eye out for if you want to get into gaming or you want to get a nice build together, because these two parts were probably the best parts in today's build. But with that said, I'll catch you guys in another tech video very soon. And also, if you want a cheap Windows 10 single end user license, then check out today's video sponsor, SCD Keys. Links in the description below. Use the coupon code TYCSK to get 12% off, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace out for now. Bye.